Hello, I'm Richard Raffan. I've just made this little bowl, and that's what you're going to see in this video. This is a small dish which I roughed out about 2 months ago, 6-inch diameter, which is 150 millimeters. You can see it's distorted quite a bit, and on the bottom that is 70 mil to about 76, 77. So that's nearly 1/4 of an inch. And that means that when I put it into these jaws, it's not going to grip on all of them, so I'm going to have to grip it really by the longest bits and just try and get an equal gap either side of those jaws, and then I want it spinning as well, as true as I can get it, because the next job is to true up the inside a bit and then get another groove in there so I can expand the chuck jaws into it. Just going to use this 1/2 inch square end for the moment, so just going there. I wasn't sure whether this was Manchurian pear or loquat, and I think it's pear. Right, so I'll true up the rim. You can do this with the 1/2 inch spindle gouge, just using to the right of the nose of the tool to sweep it across. When you do that, that leaves a razor sharp edge somewhere out on the edge here, there. If you slip onto that, that's bad news. You have a bad cut, very messy. So just take that sharp bit away. If you try and do that with the flute up, you're going to have a massive catch and the bowl will be off the lathe. So start with the tool on its side, then drop the handle and roll it into the cut. Still a bit not flat yet. So I've re-established that sharp edge. Take that off again and see what we've got. So I've got a flat rim. I'm not too worried about the inside at the moment. So now let's flick that around onto these jaws, and I can do the inside. So first thing is just to true everything up, see what I've got left. So I'll use the left wing of the gouge, just drag it across the bottom. Just kind of squeeze in at the end until I can hear it running true. True up the foot. And then just to the right wing of the nose, use a kind of pull cut up there. Hand plant on the rest. It's more of a squeeze than moving the left hand. A few little bits gone, but that's always okay. There's a pith there which seems to be solid, which is nice. A little bit more to come off the bottom, so I'll do that next. Going to do that with the skewed scraper. Again, hand plant on the rest, just squeeze the tool in. Feels lovely. Right, up the outside. We have now got to decide what size foot I want on it, and I've got some calipers already set up here. So, I could have a little bead and grip on top of the bead. I think I'll just do that so you can see it can be done. just getting tight on top of the foot there to start with, and then I need my half-inch deep fluted gouge. I'm going to drop the rest slightly because I want this to cut near centre height. Just going to use the just to the right of the nose of the tool, take a little back cut. The energy here is not pushing the tool against the wood, it's pulling it down onto the rest. You want minimal tool pressure against the wood. Gently off the edge and just roll it over and take that sharp corner off again. Oh, lovely. Seems a bit to just scratch it with abrasive. Now, I'm going to have a grip it really at the top of an outflowing foot. I don't want a foot too much smaller than that. Still a half-inch spindle gouge. Yep. Don't need that actually at the moment. I'm going to come in with a scraper just into the top of the foot again. Still the half-inch spindle gouge. And people carry on about not using spindle gouges on bowls. They're really talking about deep fluted spindle roughing gouges shouldn't be used on bowls. I'll put a bit of a ooh. It's going to put a bit of a curve on it. It'll now be a slightly shallower foot. Remove the evidence. I think it's going to have a slightly shallower foot anyway, so. Let's ease the corner in for a bit of decoration. And that looks alright. Now just make sure the chuck I had in mind will grip it. Close, but I think it'll do it. Okay, let's get sanded. 180 grit. A quick sanding usually shows up any flaws that are likely to be. Quite well. I use this as an oil bowl for a bit, so that will be the oil stains coming through. Pull my hand into the sanding. Pull it in with the left hand. That puts less strain on my lower back. .240 grit. So I'm leaning on the headstock and pulling my right hand into the wood with the abrasive. The wax on this, I think. Although actually with the oil I need a should be putting oil on this. The reason I should be putting oil on is because it's already been used as an oil bowl, so and the wax can go over the top. Beeswax. People ask about the beeswax, but its colour and so on, but it's at least 60 years old, so I've given a very big lump of it 30 years ago. Right, little utilitarian bowl does not need to be taken down to 800 grit or whatever people like to do. So that comes off, and we put the other chuck on. Bad news. Right. Thought I was going to get away with that, but I'm not. So you'll see what happens when you haven't got away with it. And so this is going to be gripped here, and obviously there will then be 4 not too decorative chuck marks, which will have to be got rid of at the next stage. Pretty thin rim that, so just going to true that up for a start. It's now a bit nearer kind of 2 millimeters thick. Now I can see pretty well how thick this wall is. Kind of loose vision. Line your nose up with the rim, and if you bring 2 fingers in, you can pretty well gauge the wall thickness there. It's probably just about 1/8 of an inch at the moment. 3 millimeters. And you can just continue that curve across the bottom with a radius which is just inside the curve I'd like to cut. So this is my big bowl gouge, bowl scrape rather. I think in terms of just brushing the surface, don't need much force against it. Always think in terms of always letting the wood come to the tool. You don't go chasing the wood with the tool. Just going to measure that. It just sounds thinner than I was expecting. Well, the chuck tool's nice and open. I can get right into the middle. Heaps, probably at least 1/4 of an inch. But this is probably going to scream at me because once you get down to about 1/8 of an inch wall thickness, the wood starts screaming. teeny little kind of nub right in the middle, and a phone call. So I've just had a phone call during which I noticed that there's chatter marks around there, and they're not bad enough to keep, therefore they need to be shear scraped off. Now I wouldn't bring a scraper in flat here because it's just too much wood in contact with the edge at once. So I tip the scraper up on edge, fingers at the back to equalize any pressure you're putting with the tool. Just use the lower edge and just gently take them away. And the main hazard here is catching the top edge, because if you catch that, that's a heck of a catch. Right, so they're gone, and a slight kind of ridginess just in there. The call came at exactly the wrong time, just was in the middle of all that. Right, and now that gets sanded. $180. I had forgotten that, so I'm going to have to rechuck this because of the teeth marks. And one way of doing that is to have a kind of wide rim with a slight undercut, and so I can just get in underneath that, and the jaws, chuck jaws, can slide out against those. So that's what I'm going to do. And as usual, the idea is to try and make it look decorative when it's actually functional. And I don't want to change chucks, so I'll just have a wider rim. And a little skew chisel to get in, just to chamfer back in there. .240 grit. Wax on top to mix in. So it doesn't look too bad. And that can now go around onto those jaws. Would do if the chuck went out far enough. Whoa, forgot to unlock the spindle. I could have made that a slightly wider rim again. Anyway, that will have to do it. Right, 8 little marks. I suppose another way of doing this would be to just fill in the gaps with more little chuck marks. But so now I can do almost anything I like with this way of shape. Might just round it over. And I'll still keep a little shoulder there. 3/8 1/2 inch spindle gouge still. Still a hint of a chuck mark there. Now I'm going to use the wing of the tool this time just to kind of like a power squeeze, just to shear straight that foot again. Just get a little bit of a curve on it. Blue 240 grit. The sock has a fair amount of wax in it, so that all blends in together. And very difficult to spot where any little indentations are in there, so that's the finished bowl.